Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne, and this is episode 60. Thank you for tuning into the podcast through our website, rockisgeorge.com, on one of the many podcasting streaming apps out there, through our YouTube page, or at knac.com. My guest for episode 60 is Mercury. He is the frontman for the Swedish pop synth cyberpunk band Priest. Their latest album, Body Machine, was recently released through Cleopatra Records. It's not usually the type of music that I listen to, but this album really piqued my interest with its sort of 80s sound, but futuristic 80s sound. You'll understand what I mean when you listen to the album. Priest is made up of several former members of the Swedish heavy metal band Ghost. They identify themselves as Mercury, salt, and sulfur. And if you're familiar with alchemy, and who isn't, you'd know these are the main elements that make up whatever it is alchemy is about. I'll let you Google that stuff. So here's vocalist Mercury of the band Priest. If I knew absolutely nothing about Priest, how would you describe the band's music to me?
It's like traveling back to the 80s, back to the future, you can say. And it's like traveling into how you describe the future back then. We use a lot of old sounds and old synthesizers that we use. So you can feel a lot of retro. At the moment, a retro sounding gothic synth band.
I'd have to agree with that assessment. And if I had to compare it to kind of bands of that day, I'd say a little bit of Dead or Alive meets Orgy in the 90s.
Yeah, that's a really good mix there. You probably spot on your description there.
Your new album, Body Machine, comes out July 15th on Cleopatra Records. This album is almost a year in the making, right? There's been some delays along the way.
Yeah, I think we finished it up in August last year. So almost a year from the finished album. So finally, and we're stoked about it. We're excited and can't wait to unleash it to the broader audience next week, actually. So it's exciting times.
Body Machine, you describe it as being darker than your previous releases. Is that kind of a reflection on how society's changed over the last couple of years?
You can say that, and it's definitely darker and more beat driven. So also maybe a return to the dance floors and everything like that, because if time's getting darker, what can you do? You gotta go out and have a good time sometime. You can not only dwell in the what's happening around in the world at the moment. So it's important to take some time off and have some fun as well. But you can hear some comments in there. Exactly. We're a cyberpunk band, you can say, and we paint images of a dystopian future.
The band Priest is made up of three primary musicians. It's yourself, Salt on keyboards, and Sulfur on programming. How did you guys all come together as a group?
It was another constellation before. We always had those three elements, Salt, Sulfur, and Mercury. But we had some other people in the beginning in the band, but it didn't work out. So now in this constellation we have now, it works super good. It's a matter of collecting good musicians and people that you get along with. And if you find that, then you can go places, Otherwise, it's going to be an internal struggle, and, that's unnecessary. Now we found the perfect blend, I think, and it works super good, actually.
One of the first singles from the album is A Signal in the Noise. If you want to talk a little bit about what you're trying to say in that song.
It's a dystopian song, and it's pretty epic, I think, in its narrative. It might be inspired by a Tarkovsky movie released in the 70s, which have a similar theme in it. I'm very proud of it. This was one of the songs that was really fast. Took really short time to record, from idea to finished song. So once in a while, a song doesn't have to take too long to come up with and record, and that's often the best songs. So it's probably the song I'm most proud of on the album, and it's also in the new Mel Gibson movie Hot Seat, and it's on the soundtrack. So we're very proud of that as well.
How did you get that song on the soundtrack for Hot Seat?
Yeah, as you said before, we signed with Cleopatra, and they're based in Hollywood. They have, of course, have contacts, and the opportunity arrived, and we talked about it. And okay, of course, it's a Mel Gibson movie, but it's also like a cyber thriller with hackers and stuff. So we thought it was went pretty well in line with what we're doing as a band, the imagery, and being a little cyberpunk and as well. So we thought it was a perfect match, and still have to pinch my arm about it because it's quite surreal to have your music in a Mel Gibson movie, I must say.
Your second single from the album is Techno Girl. If you want to talk a little bit what you're trying to say in that song.
It's might be a movie from the 90s. That's the blueprint for the idea of the song, called Tank Girl. I don't know. It was a comic series before also. So if you haven't dove into that, I highly recommend it. And it's a comment on being a strong female, and it's having a good time but not taking any shit. So that's basically it, and having it along with a cool bass line and some it's quite a heavy track, but it's quite light in its presentation as well. So we had fun in the studio doing it, and the video is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, check it out on YouTube.
You mentioned the cool video of Techno Girl. I actually watched that. It's a very cinematic video. Yeah. It was directed by Vicente Cordero of Industrialism Films. How did you hook up with Vicente for this video?
Also via Cleopatra. Thank you, Brian, and all the other guys there, and for take the initiative to do the video. We collaborated actually with Vicente, who did the narrative story of the video in Hollywood. We did a band filming in Sweden with Claudio, a friend of mine. And then they cut it together, and it works very well. And I was very surprised when I saw it positively. I didn't expect that quality of the video, so I'm so satisfied, and it's our best to date. So it's super fun to watch and super professional, easy to work, good workflow, and a good result.
Are you planning a third single for the album?
Yes, it's a song called Nightcrawler, and it's out on the same day as the album, the 15th of July. It comes along with a video as well, directed by Claudio Marino this time, and we're super stoked about that song and the video as well.
Excellent. And producing the album is Simon Soderbergh, which you've worked with in the past. Is he sort of like the fourth non-official member of Priest?
You can almost call it that, because he's been along since the very start of the band. When we decided to go with the project, it was a project before, but not professional. But when we decided to go pro with the project, he was the missing link that could take Priest to a professional level sound-wise. So we started to work with him in 2015 already to start to record the first song on our first album. And it's a great guy, great producer. It's super fun to work with.
Let's talk a little bit about your deal with Cleopatra Records. You've already mentioned they got you hooked up with a top-notch video director. They got you hooked up in a movie for a single. Yeah. So how did the Cleopatra deal come together?
Our booker know Brian on Cleopatra since before, and just took contact, and then we just start talking and had a couple of really great conversations, and I got a really good vibe going. So we decided to start working together, and here we are. And we're super thankful to them. And, it's I believe this is going to be a long working relationship. between Priest and Cleopatra. And I really hope so. And we're gonna go places. And with, I think it's a perfect match. Couldn't be any better.
Was there any apprehension going on a label that's mainly known for its 80s hair metal catalog releases and sort of...
It's perfect.
Yeah?
I think, they're legendary, and they have a lot of knowledge in the genre we're in. And I think when they heard the record, the Body Machine, I think they understand, that we come from what they were doing and are doing. So I think it's full circle,
So let's talk a little bit about the imagery of Priest. You guys wear kind of the bondage masks and outfits, and you shield your true identities behind Mercury, salt, and sulfur. And is that done as a way to get people more to focus on the music, or is it done to create this sort of mystique behind the band?
I think it's both. It's nice not having our face out there all the time as well. It's quite, and I think it's when you have a concept band like this, a full concept, it's you can get into design more. You can design masks, and I think it's cool. I always liked comic books and superheroes and stuff since I was a kid. So this is the next best thing, maybe besides being a real superhero, maybe. So you can fulfill all your dreams in a project like this on many levels. You can go into the cinematic aspect of it, design aspect, music, of course, and it keeps you satisfied on all aesthetic levels. And I'm into all that stuff. So then I doesn't have to decide what I want to do. I can do everything at once. So it's super fun. I highly recommend it if you're one of the guys that doesn't really know exactly what to choose all the time. You can have a project and mash it up inside that,
Is it frustrating sometimes when people try to find out your real identities?
Not really. And we said like this, we're not maybe gonna show our identities from our channels, from our Facebook site and so forth. But if other people want to do detective work, which might not be so hard, they are welcome to do so. But for those who want it to be a mystery, we are not going to do a spoiler for them. It's up to you, If you want to find out, you can easily do it on Google, but we're not going to put it in your face.
You were once a member of the Swedish heavy metal band Ghost, and so was Salt. Their music certainly has changed over the years. They've probably, I would describe them as more commercial heavy metal band these days. Is what Priest is doing with their music kind of where you wanted the music of Ghost to go?
We are doing this because we love it, and I don't know, it's always fun when more people listen to it and appreciate what you do. So that's a goal for sure, but we're doing it because it's fun, and I don't know what else to do really. It's a fun way to explore, the music you love and themes that you want to, stuff you want to say, and it's about communication, right? So if you communicate right, it's, that's what it's all about, I think. To write songs is to communicate, and we try to put on a full-on show, but we're not in the same league yet, but we're planning for it,
You're currently on your way to the Subcult Festival. It's Correct. One of the biggest Nordic region festivals out there. It's kind of unique that it's more than just music. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the festival and why you chose that one?
Yeah, it's right up our alley because it's focused on goth. Now this is the year they take in punk bands as well, like Swedish punk bands, but also like industrial. You have bands like Apoptygma, Berserk, Lebanon, Hanover, Das Ich. You have so we fit pretty well into the mix there. She Passed Away is playing tonight as well, so a dark wave band from Turkey. it's a fun festival, but they also connect it with some other subcultures, and people like to do a little bit of a Halloween style with their outfits, I think. And I don't know super much about it, but we played there once before and it was really fun. So we're looking forward to the gig tonight.
Is this your first festival show of the concert season for 2022 since the lockdowns?
Yes, it's our first festival since before the lockdowns, yes. And we did a small tour in the UK, Ireland earlier this year, and did some shows late last year in Sweden, and that was our first shows. Now we're back on track, and we're gonna do a big announcement tomorrow for a big European run. So keep your eyes peeled.
This big European run is in addition to the tour you have set up with Frontline Assembly and Die Krups?
Yes, and it's gonna start the 24th of July with another pretty big band. Okay, it's with Combichrist, so we're gonna go do it with Combichrist, but tomorrow we're gonna show all the dates and everything. So we're stoked about that, and it's a good chance. It's perfect right after album release to have a big coverage in Europe. But we're also working on coming over to the States, so more info about that will come very soon.
Excellent. Have you toured with Combichrist before?
No, but we know members in Combichrist since before, and toured with some members of the current lineup of Combichrist. Aesthetic Perfection, we toured with Aesthetic Perfection a couple of years ago. So yeah, we're super stoked. We really love the guys, and yeah, it will be nice to finally meet them and have some high octane badass shows together.
It sounds like it. That's all I got for you today, Mercury. The new album.
Thank you so much.
The new album is Body Machine. It comes out July 15th on Cleopatra Records. It's a fantastic album. I love everything you're doing with it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me on the show.
Once again, I want to thank Mercury of the band Priest for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out Priest's latest album, Body Machine, out now on all streaming platforms through Cleopatra Records. If you like what you hear streaming, make sure you buy a physical copy of the album. Support the artist. Here in the US, that's through the Cleopatra Records store. Overseas, through Priest's website. For all things Priest related, check out their website at priestnexus.com. I also want to thank John Lappin of Lappin Enterprises and Cleopatra Records for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. I'll see you again soon.